So, Iaan, with that, over to you to talk on the topic of community emergence preparedness. Are you ready? Over to Iaan.
Thank you, Jasper. Would you mind if I switch off the video just for bandwidth purposes?
You're welcome.
All right. Okay, so if everyone can do that, then everyone will also, it will help everyone with the bandwidth situation. All right, Jasper, can I just ask you if there's anything, people that's putting up hands or things like that, if you can just assist while I'm presenting?
Yeah, Iaan, I think we will go right through your presentation and aim for about past.
Good.
Everybody keep their questions right towards the end, or you can put it in the chat room and then we'll handle it right at the end.
Good. Right. Okay, I just want to, as I'm starting this session off, as Jasper said, I'm involved in the Doornkliff community for many years now. I think it's more than 10 years. But I just want to set the scene for us and say, if we're going into this preparedness session and information that I'm going to share with you, just consider these two verses. The first one is 2 Timothy 1:7, that said God has given us, not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and a sound mind. So keep that in mind. I'm not here to scare anyone or to drive fear in any way. Secondly is James that's saying to us, but be doers of the word. So we must remember and know from a spiritual point of view is we must not just read the Bible, we must also do. And if we at this point in time see that we're moving into certain seasons of the word, we must know that there are certain things that we must do to prepare us for what is to come in South Africa, but also on an international basis. All right, so the whole emphasis is to look at how do you prepare your community. Remember that your household is only as strong as your community is. So that's why we have also a look at the broader spectrum in terms of your community where you stay. Now you can define community in two ways. You can either do it via a geographical area, like your suburb or your CPF, your community police forum area, a neighborhood watch or plots or farms in the proximity. But you also can take it from a like-minded people group. So that might be an ethnic group, it might be a religious group, it might be an extended family group, a preppers group, or even a geek group like we are now. So to prepare your community, you must first of all define and say, okay, who's the community that we are going to look after and that we are going to prepare for? And obvious, you can be part of more than one community. The whole thing of a disaster management situation is that you want to be connected. Very important. Be connected to different communities, different people and networks so that you can work together. Then, of course, as you start to define your community, there are some factors to consider when you prepare. Now, first of all, there's a whole, you can connect or check this out from a spiritual viewpoint. If you look at this slide here on the right-hand side, define your calling. You are born in a certain continent, country, city, work in a certain business. All those things will have some influence in how to determine your preparedness, because the people in South Africa, in Africa will not prepare the same way like, let's say now, Ukraine in Europe, because the climate's different, the setup is different, the environment in terms of wars are different. So you need to take consideration of your external factors, where you stay on a national and international level. And then, of course, you belong to a certain nation, a family group, a part of believers. All those things will have an impact, and there will be factors to consider when you are starting to prepare your community for some sort of a disaster in the future. I want to look at a few just international events that you might look at that will have an impact in some sort of a way. I think all of us are currently well aware of what is happening in Russia, Ukraine. Basically what's happening is that Russia is standing up as a world power. It will be the military power of the future, just as China will be the economic power of the future. So this is leading or preparing to lead into the Ezekiel 38 war against Israel. You will know that Ezekiel 38 is talking about a few countries that will come up against Israel. And those are the ones: Russia, Libya, Ethiopia, Turkey, Eastern Germany, Sudan, Iran, just to name a few. And these countries are currently having alliances that's been never before. And the whole thing that's happening now with Russia, Ukraine is actually Russia is building his power and getting into action. This will eventually lead to some type of a war thing that will lead us to a fake peace and the coming of the Antichrist in some sort of a way during that situations. So another one that is running actually parallel to this is China and Taiwan. And as we said, China is standing up as your economic world power. And the same thing is happening. You will know, basically, it's the same situation. The Ukraine and Taiwan is where the NATO countries and America specific are launching their missiles from can launch it to Russia within 3 to 7 minutes. And that is what these countries are now coming up against. And Russia and China said no way any further. And that's why they want to take back Ukraine and China, Taiwan. So you must be aware that China is very quiet at this point in time, but they're looking very quiet into the situation of what's happening between America and Russia. Then, of course, that's the whole thing about North Korea. North Korea is every now and then testing a ballistic missile. No one knows what they want to do and where they're going. Just remember, it's also a communist country. So take note of them. And then, of course, what happened is, I don't know if you're aware of that, America lifted all nuclear sanctions again that they had against Iran. So Iran can now basically develop any type of nuclear with no consequences. And you know what Iran said? They will develop nuclear weapons to take Israel out of this world. So I'm sharing all these things just to show you that there's a lot of wars and rumors of wars currently going. But these things that we're talking about here are really, really on a serious level. And this can easily lead to a third world situation, war in our time frame. So if we want to look at how to identify possible disasters, events in the future, take note that there can be natural disasters, and there's a list of them. You can have a look at them. Take note of solar flares that are currently spontaneously happening and have an impact on our electronic system, and I foresee that this will, in the near future, we'll have some huge solar flares from the sun. But there's a few things that you can start to prepare for. And again, it depends where you stay. Like in South Africa, I don't think a volcano is that big issue, but maybe drought and flooding and those kind of things are things that we have to look into. Then there will also be man-made disasters, and this we know about. This is things like riots. Remember what happened in KwaZulu-Natal? It cut off was cut off from other areas. There can be wars. Look at what's happening now. The supply chains are really disrupted. I'll a little bit more on that a little bit later. Looting, you've also seen what happened there in Natal. Virus pandemics, that can have the consequence that you don't have access to hospitals. Water, sorry about that one. Water contamination, crashes of planes. Electricity system sabotage, that's a really serious thing that we can have a look in South Africa of what's currently happening. And then, of course, cyber attacks is a thing that's currently in the news, that's happening quite often. Even now in Ukraine, there are also some sort of cyber attacks on the government systems. So these are examples of natural and man-made disasters that you have to take into consideration in your environment. Say, okay, how am I going to prepare for this? Now, let's quickly have a look at COVID-19, what we've just went through, and see if there's something that we can learn from this. First of all, we have seen that they can put us in full lockdown in a short moment's time. And that will come with restricted traveling, it can be forcefully and so forth. So just remember, any future problem or things, it's been tested now. They can very easily, very quickly put us in full lockdown. So we must plan around the full lockdown situation. Then, of course, no one thought this would happen in South Africa. Hospitals, ambulances, oxygen are not a given. You maybe remember here in Gauteng specifically, there were no hospitals, ambulances, oxygen available for a few days, maybe a week or two. So what are you and your family preparing for in terms of this and your community? Another thing was that mass media platforms can drive a certain agenda through fear and nation. And everyone that's not with them, that's not thinking in that direction, they will just filter, ban, content removal, block their accounts, and so forth. So don't think that you have access to a lot of social media platforms and so forth to put your voice out there. That might be cancelled in a very short period. And then, of course, the massive supply chain disruptions. I don't know if you're aware of things that's currently happening. I was just talking to a fellow believer now an hour ago. At this point in time, he can't find any rental car in the whole of Gauteng. There's no rental cars available in Gauteng at this point in time due to a lot of issues, but it is the rental car companies, apparently, this is under correction, can't buy new cars at this point in time because there's not cars available with the chips and things that they needed because there's a shortage of these electronic chips. Now, this is just the start of our supply chain disruptions that we will see will manifest in the future. Also, we've seen that you won't have access to certain places if you do not adhere to certain criteria. In other words, they take your privilege away. So keep in mind, the COVID was just an example of if you're vaccinated or not vaccinated. And I'm not here propagating for or against vaccination. I'm just telling you that see and what you can learn from the situation. And this last thing, this slide, I just want to end off with a hint here and say, if at all, get involved in some sort of a business that's categorized as an essential service, or where you can operate online. You've seen what happened in the lockdown 5 situation. Get to a place where you can support your family and in some way your community so that your business can go on during these types of events. So how are we going to prepare if we say we want to prepare as a community as far as possible? Remember, I'm talking now from a community perspective, but it's always you start with yourself, your family, moving into your business or working environment, and then your community. So the first thing is to perform a risk assessment. We've said now in terms of what is the factors to consider, your environment, all those kind of things. And if it looks like a daunting task, too big, too much to do, to handle, just start with a 3-day survival pack. Small, just start with it so that you start to get into the game, do some research, get a 3-day survival pack for you in place. After that, you start to move to a 3-week survival supply. So you have a look at your household, maybe a little bit broader to your neighbors around you. What do you need to go into a 3-week survival environment? And from there, you build up to a 3-month survival supply, but also a sort of an action plan. You'll see as you go longer term, you need to have plans in place to help you and assist you with the process. And then, of course, while you're building this plan, the biggest thing that you will need in emergencies and disaster situations are your skill set. So start preparing yourself in some sort of medical knowledge, how to water purification, how to store food long-term, growing vegetable gardens if applicable, or raising chickens in your backyard. Can you handle radio communication with a 2-way radio? Can you read a map and a compass? Do you have survival skills? Those are typical things that you need to have a look at. And it's not difficult to teach yourself. There's a lot of YouTube channels at this point in time that you can help you and assist you, but just get into the mindset I need to prepare myself and I need to get some life skills. And these are actually just certain normal skills, but we have over time, period of time in our modern world, we got a huge lack of these types of skills. I got a lot of people asking me now, Iaan, what if nothing happens? We have done all this and it's a year later, it's 2 years later, nothing happened. What now? And I just said to them, well, what happened to you in the process? You have learned a lot of new skills, and it's always good to learn new skills. You will find that it brought your family, your community that you've defined, it brought them closer together. You will really find it as soon as you're getting into this environment and you draw your family into this, or you draw your bigger community in, there's a lot of working together and a lot of closeness that's starting to happen in the community. You will in the process make new friends, and that's all of us need, new friends always. And then, of course, you will start to feel a lot more in control of possible future events. You will see that if you are prepared, if you've done a risk assessment and you prepare in some sort of a way, you will get a sort of calmness. And the whole thing about fear, stress, anxiety for the possible future will sort of diminish and get smaller and smaller, because you are preparing, you're taking what you have into consideration, and you are skilling yourself in this direction. And when you have the knowledge and some equipment and stock and so forth that you've got in the process, you will reduce the impact of the disaster on your personal life, your personal environment, your community. And that's actually a very nice place to be. So, and what I have also realized and experienced is that the whole process of getting ready is actually fun. You know, if you start working with these things that you've never get to do in previous months or years, it's something new to do for you as a person, as a family, as a community. And a lot of people are currently talking about this. So you will find like-minded people around you, family, community, and you will start working with these people, building new friendships, and in the process, you will have a lot of fun. So remember that your spheres of influence start with you and your family. You must take your family with you on this road, on this journey, walk with them, prepare with them. And that will lead to, if you're in a business environment or as an employee, take it further to your business environment. And then eventually it also will escalate to your community. Remember, we said your household is as strong as your community. If you have a lot of food or water and your neighbors don't, they will come to you, either want to take it by force or begging you, but they will come to you. So start and see how far can you go to prepare your current family and your neighbors and community around you. Okay, people, then I've got about 5 to 6 minutes left, and with 4 slides about the emergency action plans for water, energy, and so forth. I can go into detail and can take us a lot of time. I just want to emphasize a lot of strategic points, but we have this on action plans that are available. We can distribute it to you via the WhatsApp groups and so forth. So I'm just going to run quickly to just give you an overview. This is not the detailed version. So if you have a look at water, make sure you know how to collect, how to filtrate your water, how to sanitize and store water. There's a big difference between filtration and sanitizing. Make sure you can do that, and you have the things for that. Define your local water sources. Remember, when a disaster strikes, the first thing that's happening is that people don't have access to water, and they drink poor water, poor quality water, and they get sick, and then they get ill, and they die of a simple thing like unclean water. Try to implement a grey water system. Look at rainwater harvesting. You can slowly upgrade your whole system. Store filtering and sanitizing equipment and chemicals. They are not that expensive. Buy water containers, anything from a 5 liter to a 10,000 liter tank if you have the place. Learn how to use TDS meters, ORP meters, pool test kits. Those are the things that will help you and assist you to test if your water is drinkable. Right, that's quickly on water. This is the most important thing. Within 3 days without water, you will die. Okay, so the next thing that we had to look was our energy environment. Start do researching in terms of availability, cost, maintenance, place to store and store your energy resources. Start investing in small generator, build it up, upgrade it, get to a place where you can maybe afford a solar system. A gig, if you're part of a gig, you can have interest-free loans from gig. So get involved in something like the gig environment. Store enough consumables like fuel, your oil, gas, plugs, filters, batteries, all those kind of things that are energy related. And then go and think and plan around how are you going to handle hot water in your house, cooking your food. Have a look at your cooling facilities, fridges, freezers, your lighting, and your emergency medical equipment. Maybe you want the people that must have oxygen concentrator or whatever. Have a look at those things. And then fire can break out. So these are things that you need to look and say, okay, do I have fire blankets, fire extinguishers, and those kind of things in my house? Do you have first aid kits, burn shields, knowledge how to use it? Remember, you must start thinking in a way that if there are, I know for certain in Centurion, if there are 2 or 3 fires, we have a problem because there's not a lot of fire engines to come out to handle 5 or 6 houses parallel altogether. And another thing that you must take note of a fire engine is, did you know that if there is an emergency situation and there's a disaster in an area declared, that the fire engine don't go out to a place where there's a disaster area if a police escort is not taking him there. So just imagine if the police is not available and so forth, and 3, 4, 5, 10 homes burn altogether. Then you will start to plan around that community and say, okay, maybe if you buy some flat houses that can connect to the fire hydrants in your street. I know it's illegal to use it as a citizen, but when there's an emergency, things change. So think of as a community to say, maybe I must buy a few lay flat houses, the connectors, your shut-off nozzles. Get a fire team in your community trained so that they know how to open those things and how to handle that fire hydrant with the water coming out. Now, we assume then that there's still water in the pipes. If there's not water, maybe think of a mobile firefighter. Those tanks that the farmers normally use, they're anything between 10 to 15,000 rand, depending on what you're buying. Start thinking in terms of if the emergency services are not there to help and assist. What are you going to do as household? But what are you going to do as a community? And start preparing in that direction. Okay, then a very important thing is the whole thing about medical. You know, after your food and your water is your medical situation is very important. Get some books to help and assist you. I know I've got the book myself, the Survival Medicine Handbook. It's a very, very good book. It's a whole medical summary of all types of things. Get something that you can read or can assist you or guide you through emergencies. Get some skill in terms of medical knowledge. There are various courses like your first aid courses, level 1, level 2, level 3. There's ambulance assistant courses and so forth. Volunteer. I'm currently part of these emergency response vehicles. I volunteer myself on a weekend basis to get practical experience in these situations. Make sure you got your medical kits ready, your personal kit, a vehicle kit, a family kit. It all depends on how far you want. Start getting your supplies for your first aid, chronic medicine, general medication, natural remedies, plant medicines. Get a stockpile for yourself and to stock some of these things for you. And then slowly but surely, you can do this with friends, with community members. Start working, investing in a direction to get equipment like oxygen concentrators, your nebulizers, blood pressure machines, meters, your glucose meters. There's a lot of small meters that when you have them available in your house, A doctor can get to you via Skype, via online, Zoom, whatever, and he can say, okay, just take your blood pressure. Tell me what is your sugar level. You can quickly do it, and then he can say, okay, do the next, do the following, do whatever, because you don't know if a doctor will be able to get to you. Stock as much as you can PPE, your personal protective equipment, and then don't forget your hygiene and sanitation aspects. That is soaps, toothpaste, your ladies' sanitary pads, and all those kind of things. Those are things that can quickly have some issues in your house if there's no hygiene. So have a look at that. There's other things on a community level also to have a look into sanitation. That's things like, what are you going to do with the refuse in your street if the lorry is not coming to pick it up? What are you going to do when someone is dying in your community and there's no vehicles to come and pick them up? That is sanitation, hygiene environments that you must start thinking about if there's huge disasters in areas. And then, very important, start to connect yourself with doctors or organizations that are willing to treat you online. I know there's some doctors that don't want to shift this paradigm, and you must come and see them. They don't do it online, but you can't afford to go that anymore. You need doctors or medical institutions that's be able to help you at your house or online so that you can be assisted when you're in that process. And then, of course, a big thing that's now coming up in South Africa is the whole thing about starting a medicinal garden. There's a lot of people. I've got now someone here in Doornkloef that's assisting us, writing on a weekly basis about a certain plant, how to plant it, how to grow it, how to mix it, how to use it, for what type of things. Use medicinal gardens to help and assist you. There are other plans that we're still working on. We must still do the food one, the communication one, the security, the hygiene and sanitation in detail. As we are doing it in our community, we will roll it out to everyone that want to hear about it. But that's where we are at this point in time. I know I've run a lot of things now very, very quickly, but I just want to give you a broad spectrum, a high-level strategized plan, sort of, so that you can start thinking about these things. And I think from there, Jasper, I want to hand over to you if there's anything that you want to take from here.